YouTubers, and welcome back to the Whole Special channel and a case of pinching rods. That sound maybe a little abstract, but bear with me here. Here we have two slide rails for a double-edged trim saw. And they glide on a set of rollers. We got the roller mounts right here, but we're still waiting on bearings. And the rails in them were a tad worn, so we had to replace those. Now, sure, there's a lot of ways to get these rails mounted in, but you want to get them mounted in to where you're not creating any damage to the surface of the rails. And then two, you got to keep your tooling out of the way so that when you mount it up on the mill that you can drill these. So what I ended up doing is making two of these. I'll give you a close-up right here. And so when these things close in on each other, they push the rod outward and upward into the groove that's in the rail and fix it or put it in place and keep it and hold it to where it can be drilled, tapped, and all that good stuff. And then of course it has to be disassembled and then deburred and all that. We'll spare you the agony of those steps, but anyway, we'll show you what these things look like at the beginning of the project right here. So as you can see, the rails in them looked pretty hideous. The camera didn't pick it all up quite, as good as it should have. But rest assured, they were quite worn. A lot of slop in there. The machine wasn't accurate anymore, so we had to go in and do a replacement. So the next step, of course, is to make these things, and we'll show you that right here. Now what we did is put a little bevel on these just to squeeze the rods up into the groove on the rail and give it its hold. So when you hearken back to the video vise challenge that Stefan Gotteswinter put on, and then me and dynoguy answered to see how much flex is in a machine vise, you'll remember that the jaws do flex ever so slightly. And the problem that I had with these, even though they are milled to the same width, when you close in on the jaw will move a little bit. And so to compensate for that, wound up sticking a little piece of wire in, like right here. Now that wire will compensate just enough because the copper has some give to it, and it'll clamp both the work pieces precisely in place against the fixed jaw. Now the problem is with this, it has to be drilled precisely. These holes can't vary. I mean the distance didn't really matter. It was just a matter of keeping them in line and keeping them precisely in line with each other in order to, when you tap it, when you cinch it down, that they don't move. The hole where the bolt just turns in had to be fairly close and fairly precise. Didn't want too much slop there because these jaws have to close in on one another fairly precisely in order to work as a prism vise. So not a prism vise, but a prism vise. So that was one of the reasons that these had to be held in place accurately in the vise.
Freilich.
So here's how we're going to mount. Here's a still picture of the setup for drilling these. I had two studs that I just mounted up of the same size. on one of the grooves in the table and just shoved everything up against it. So that way it gave me a nice fixed parallel point without having to tram anything in. Worked out just peachy. I did have to do a little adjustment on the X and Y just because the original drill holes were actually done by hand. So they were fairly accurate. The person that did these did a fairly decent job of it. But so here's how we're going to drill the holes. And before I would advance to the next hole, because every hole had to be essentially positioned just so I had to drill and tap and do everything in one pass, so to speak. Now, what I did to get the drill to center, because you're drilling down with a thin drill onto a round piece of stock, the smallest center drill I had wasn't long enough to reach into the hole. So what I did is I took a 7mm drill. The hole was a 7mm, and so I pre-drilled with the 7mm drill, and then into that divot, then the fine drill for the 5mm drill for the M6 thread. So here's how we're going to do that.
point. Ja.
Well, anyway, that's pretty much a wrap on the project. I'll bring you guys in for some close-up shots here. I'll put in some stills and then include a little action at the end of the video showing the machine in operation as it's making chips. For those of you who are kind of interested in seeing what this machine is, what this type of saw is, this is for a furniture manufacturing company that makes all kinds of furniture components, and so this is a double-ended trim saw, and it has to be precise because these are final fits, so there's no going back and retrimming or anything like that. So the boards, when they come off of this machine, have to be right on the money. So anyway, that's a wrap for today's episode of Pinching the Rods. Hope you guys were able to glean a little something out of it. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, critiques, suggestions, by all means put them in the comment section below. If there's somebody out there, there's somebody out there giving me thumbs down. It'd be nice to get some critical or some feedback and some constructive criticism as to what it is about the videos that isn't coming across. So if there's anybody out there that is giving me the thumbs down, put it in the comment section below. If there's something I can improve on the videos, I will certainly make an effort to do so. After all, this is a learning experience for me too, so I hope that whoever's giving me a thumbs down can at least be man enough or have cojones enough to step up and say, okay, this is what I don't like about your video. I've had some before, and it was duly noted and appreciated, and I certainly took steps to correct the problem, if it ever was one. But like I said, YouTube's a learning experience, so I will definitely make an effort to make the material more watchable if I possibly can. So with that, thanks for stopping by, and we'll hope to see you all again soon.
How about that?
Hallo. Wenn wir schon.